bang, and there I am. See, got it down this week. Didn't step on my own toes. Hey Kent, hey Glenn, hey Robert. We're in, and we're off and running. Hey David, and it's like 96 degrees. So isn't that nice to hear? It's 96 degrees, and I think we got a couple days in the hundreds next week, but looks like we're out of the triple digit summer for the most part. We're going to be in the 90s, in the mornings in the 70s. We're going to start the cool down trend. So, and there's Tony. And so, yeah, that's nice. I'm very happy that we've kind of run into that and everything. There's Scott and another David. And bring it on. Hey, Lacey's there. And Robert. So, kick off this week. We'll start at the beginning here. We should start at the beginning at the first. Always remember Sunsets is available. Huh? Amazon Prime. You can watch it there. We'll have some more of these at the Rendezvous for those who missed out the first time. But the film about the Dutch hunters. Glenn Rogers' book, 10 Reasons Why It's Not in the Superstitions. Glenn was all over Facebook and everywhere and even showed up here, I think, a couple times. And then he's disappeared. Tried to get a hold of him for the Rendezvous or something. Don't agree with a lot of the book, but it would be nice to hear kind of how he arrived at some of the source material he did, because it doesn't really make sense in the book. Book that I talked about, that I said steer away from, is Tammy Merworth, Dreams of Lost Gold. There's not much here you're going to get that you're going to care about. The Dutchman story stuff. This is about the three guys in from Utah. I always can't remember the third guy's last name. I know it was Malcolm Meeks. Tammy Merworth, who was Curtis Merworth's, I believe, sister. And can't remember the third guy's name offhand. Another one, guy that's out there, he's out there really on Facebook a lot still, that he's trying to get someone to go to his site. Matt Polston, The Lost Dutchman, Mind Location, Rewriting History. He's really pumping it. I don't know. This is crazy, because this is a person that found The Lost Dutchman. He's rewriting history. I think he's made 2 or 3 trips to try to get there. He doesn't live out here. He failed to make it to the site. No one seems to have ever been there. That's kind of a strange book and thing to write about. So I don't think he'll be at the Rendezvous or be out to talk about it. But yeah, I'd love to have a conversation with him at this point, that because I know he wanted me to go out there, and it's like, okay, you're not even here and you can't want to go someplace, and I don't know. And then of course Jason Fritz, who's recovering nicely. So I've heard from Jason, but cracking the code on The Lost Dutchman. This is his hardback. There's a softback, and he'll be at the Rendezvous to talk about his book. So there we go. No more books. So we got through all of those. That's kind of been going through that stuff. I wish someone would write a little longer book, 70 pages or so. It doesn't. I reread it several times in the one day, and then I go through back and look at things. But that's kind of some recent stuff. I always try to pick up the recent stuff as I can, and then I try to go back through it because people ask about some of that stuff. Lil Wayne. Now that's that black rapper. I'm just Wayne. Not on the boat fishing today. There you go. You're going Monday, it appears. Robert, Mountain Time. I think someone's taking out trash. That was supposed to be hello. Oh, I thought you were referring to me as the rapper. Captain Freedom, purchase Sunsets on Prime. Thank you very much. Hey, Wayne and Legends fans. You will enjoy it. A little different take on that. In fact, today I had a discussion. For some reason, my dogs are really excitable about the trash going out. If the trash is going out the back door to the cans, they really get wound up. It's a very exciting moment in their lives. Yes, that's them barking because the trash is going out. As soon as they see you get a bag or they see you at the trash can, it looks like you're going to pull it out. Boom, that's it. Hey, there you go. That's Tyler from Tucson. Hey, Tyler. Robert, what do you think of Jason's book? It wasn't there wasn't enough for me. I thought he tries to explain his premise pretty well. His history's okay. He did make trips to the site, has pictures of the site. There's a few things that fall through. Getting him to talk at the rendezvous, he can speak on it. It was probably, though you might disagree with his hypotheses or his findings, it's better than the other books. So I will give him that. He put his time and due diligence in on that. Have you read Ron Quinn's book, Searching for Arizona's Buried Treasure? I don't know if it's just, is it Arizona's Buried Treasure? Is that the title of it? Because I probably have it on the shelf. I buy a lot of those books. I don't always remember the titles because they're just buried treasure books. I don't know. It would be in my general treasure section. Other than the Bark Notes, what other do you think the best ideas about? Well, that's a problem, okay? And that is something we should talk about. There's several different kinds of books. Sometimes they're talking about a history of searching for it. Sometimes they're talking about the history of it. And sometimes they're saying, oh, look at me, I found it. There's quite a few books of the look at me, I found it, or I think I found it, but now I'm looking for it again, Killer Mountains. So most books don't do justice to the history or the kind of chronology and timeline of stuff. The books that were written in the 60s and 70s seemed far better. I still always say, if you want an introductory book, Tom Collenborn's Ride Through Time is probably the best introduction. Killer Mountains is really good because you'll really have an understanding of it, and it'll make sense. Helen Corbin's, I have a copy here. Not the Bible, but Curse of the Dutchman's Gold. This was a pretty good book. The binding doesn't hold up very well on it, but it was a good book encompassing the Dutchman, not who found it and whatnot and all that stuff. So this book was really, really well done by Helen. Of course, I love Center's Gold as well, but this was the book I really liked. The Bible had a lot of things that she was given that turned out later to be fabricated and so forth, and caused a lot of problems. Speaking of that, before we get any further, we lost Clay Wurst earlier this year, and I believe it was Monday. We lost Bob Corbin, former state attorney general, former president of the NRA, and well-known Dutch hunter. I knew Bob. Didn't know him. He wasn't a personal close friend, but we had a lot of conversations. He was much like Clay, someone that I just talked to and kind of was able to talk about a myriad of different subjects. I respected Bob very much. He had a lot of knowledge. He'd been back out there in the 60s searching and so forth. Very close friends with Tom Collenborn and searched with him. Bob was 96. He passed it asleep. The family said he was in great health, which last couple of times I saw him, he looked in great health. He seemed to be doing fine physically, and they said he just went to bed, everything was fine, and he died in his sleep. So I don't think you could ask for the life he had and accomplishments he had to pass away at 96 in your sleep. That's probably about as good as it can get. So no long-term illness, nothing like that. Services will be upcoming. I'm sure that'll be a giant service. Quite a lot of people will want to attend that. Don't know why I was pulling this tray out to move the mouse. I don't need to move the mouse. But there you go. But yeah, I would always say Ride Through Time and The Curse of the Dutchman's Gold are really two solid books. The next one, even though it had a lot of material that was given, inserted that under difficult circumstances. Thomas Glover had a lot of change of heart about a lot of it, and material used by a certain person, but the Golden Dream's pretty damn good. It's just, when someone comes in and just gives somebody a whole bunch of great material, says, yeah, you should use this and this and this, and then provides false research and stuff, it just kind of hurts everything overall. It's one of the reasons sometimes these books get published and then they just seem to disappear and there's no second editions or no reprint of them. Is just they're trying to fix those problems. The local library has ordered Simsili and Jesse's 2009 book. Okay, is that the second one? I don't know which one comes which, because you have, it must be the second book, because I don't think he prints the first book anymore. So there you go. My dogs hear them. Funny, yeah. My dog's watching too. Yeah, because of my dog's. Yeah, obviously the trash went out. I wish you were someone would invite Dan Dillman so you could talk to him. The problem with a lot of people is, okay, I will tell a story here. I've told it to some people, is you try to reach out to people and there's people you reach out to and they just want nothing to do with it. They want a paycheck. And at the Rendezvous, it's just an event we have with everybody. We're not paying our guest speakers. They have a book or something, or trying to get viewers on a YouTube channel or even a cable network show. We just, hey, would you like to be a guest speaker? You're talking to your peers. You're talking to other authors, historians, Dutch hunters, treasure hunters. Some are successful. So you're talking to a group of people in your lane. Marshall Trimble, who's, I believe, still listed as the Arizona State Historian. Marshall Trimble, I'd met him a number of times. Marshall and I got along. He was very nice with Trevor. Him and Trevor used to talk about baseball. He was good friends with Tom Collenborn. But I have pictures of Trevor when he was wee little with him. And I asked Marshall once, I said, hey, we do the Dutch Hunter Rendezvous. I know it's a little different thing, but it would be cool to have you come out and do, can you do 15, 20 minutes on your take of the Lost Dutchman in general, or a couple stories or something like that. And I explained the event. I said, it's like kind of the Don's Trek and all that. If you'd come out, we'll give you a chili dog or whatever we were cooking at the time. It's like, hey, we'd just love to have you out. It's a good audience, very interested audience. Let me know if you'd be interested. And his line was, you'll have to talk to my agent, my manager, and you guys will have to work on how much. And I said, well, nobody gets paid for it. And I said, it's not like a paid event that people don't go in and pay at the door and stuff. We have a raffle to help cut costs and stuff, but we don't make much money on this. This is purely basically a free event that we kind of most of the time can lose money on. And I said, it's just about the love of Arizona history and the superstition. And he said, well, you just have to talk to my manager or agent. And I'm thinking, I'm talking to you. You could just say, hey, what date is it? And I'll write it down and check. And if I'm not booked, I'll come out and do that. But no, that wasn't how it was going to be. So that's what happens with people. And I know someone the other day was talking about Dan Dillman. I don't know. People are weird. There's a couple people, and I don't want to mention their names specifically. We've tried to get to come out, and they just kind of, Now Jesse, who's written his book and was on Lost Gold, and what was the other one? Ice Cold Gold. Jesse came out, and Jesse talked. He did 2 different talks. Josh doesn't write books or stuff, but Josh was there. We did a panel thing once, and Josh jumped in on that with Jesse. So he's talked there. Ron, different people have talked, and no one's had a problem. We've had some other different guest speakers, but that is a problem. A lot of these people, I know, they when they invite me to speak, be a guest lecturer or a speaker for different things, they always say there's, they have, like, what do they call honorarium, and it's usually anywhere from $500 to $1,000, sometimes around $1,500 if it's a bigger community. And they'll say, we'd like you to come in and talk at this. And I always tell them I want the money to go to either the Superstition Historical Society, the Goldfield Museum, or the Dawns of Arizona. I'm not going to take a dime of it. I'll come out and do an hour talk or hour and a half, and I'll do it for that. The museum, as far as I know, doesn't pay. I do that. I'll be the speaker at the museum this year again. Well, not this year, next year, 2026. I'll be speaking there again. I'll be the closing speaker of their lecture series. And I don't think they pay anybody for that. I've never asked, because I just think you do that because of your love of the subject and so forth, and you come out and you give a little time. But even the ones that pay, I always defer that. And so there is a problem with a number of people that always want paid, and I don't know, they want prima donna. I always think it's awesome the way, History Channel or Discover or Science Channel, the way they've treated people in the production companies, what we get out of this. I mean, I always think that's pretty cool too. Let's see. Ron Quinn, Aravaca area. Yeah, I would have to look for the book when I got time. To Bob Ward. Took me a moment. Been in the upper 40, lower 80s. That ain't here. Thanks for the input. Just ordered. I will get it. People, I forget tons of people hit you up on this, especially after your show. Glad to have. Enjoy the knowledge in the LDM. I have a pretty, I've had that discussion a couple times this week with people I've never talked to. Said I'm not a skeptic. I have a pretty just open mind, and if I just think something doesn't make sense or something, I'll kind of just kind of move on from it. I always try to treat everybody nice unless they start getting kind of loopy on me. I do say things sometimes that I realize people don't take as the humor. Like when I was up in Sedona and I said, I'm going to buy this book. And it was these two books right here. Scientific Vortex Information and Sedona's Best Vortex Guidebook. And I got them just so when I'm up at that way, I can stop by one of these places, take my EMF and my stuff out. And just, because everybody can talk, but I'll see. And the woman said, I hope you enjoy reading these. Neither of them are very long. This one's only 60 pages. But I figured, hey, it'd be kind of cool to go out and do that. And I said, yeah, it's for shits and giggles. And they were so disappointed in me. You could see it in their eyes that I said that. But it is. It's these types of books are just, they're entertainment tourism. This is not a science book on science. Sorry, Jamie Dalton. I'm sure you're a very nice lady, and I'm sure it's awesome. And I bought your book. No matter what anyone says, if I bought your book, okay, Jason kept giving me books, but if I bought your book, which most of all these books I purchased, and I've told Jason I will purchase one of his, because I always purchase a book to support the author, whether I like the book or not. So there's several books I talked about. I did purchase them. I didn't get them. I didn't find them in a used bookstore. Most of these newer ones, I am purchasing at full cost, okay? I have the right to sit there and maybe I don't critique it the way I should maybe, but I will talk about it and say whether or not it should be recommended. So I like sharing, because by sharing my knowledge, at the same time we're having discussion what we're doing here, and what we're doing here sometimes I learn from, and I open different doors, and I'm looking at different people's perspectives, and that I can learn from that and grow from that. So for me to step back and say, we're two very different people and we have very different views on the LDM. Well, I want to have that discussion because I want to know why. Because with everything I've learned, why would this person's be so far off from where I'm at? I always think that's interesting. I take it you're saying that's ridiculous about them wanting to get paid for coming out to do something that everybody else does for free. Oh, say Wayne. I thought people would want to speak, prove they're not trying to fool people. Well, and there's that podcast I did, and I didn't do. I'm hoping to get in touch with the guys. I keep meaning to send them an email, and I will mention here, it's Two Rabbits, One Hole. They did a series. I think they did 3 episodes, podcast episodes on the Superstition Mountains. Got a lot of stuff wrong, mixed a lot of stuff up, got some really good stuff in there. I like those guys. I'm listening to a couple of other podcasts about other subject matters. I like what they do. I think they got good chemistry and stuff, and I talked about them. But I always... They have a similar thought as I do, is if you put yourself there, then you're there. And then you're there for entertainment or education. You're not changing the world. So come out, talk, promote your book, sell your book, and that's cool. If you're just writing a book to say, I found it with the other 25 people in the last couple of years, Well, it doesn't do much further. I mean, I think if you're not going to get up and be at least the guest speaker and sell a few books, you wasted your time. Because by selling a few books, you might get a few more people. That convince a few more people, or they share their books, or they lend their books out, and it has other people. That's what you're trying to do, is reach people. One way or the other. Jason, maybe not selling books and handing them out, but he's still trying to reach people. He's doing the right thing. If you're just out there and you won't give anything to anybody and you're not going to want us to talk about it and stuff, that's wrong. And I will give that to a lot of people that have been the guest speaker. Some of them didn't write books, but just came out to talk about things, did slideshows, other things. But at least they had the cojones to get up there and talk about it. And you could say it's a rough crowd, but it's always a fair crowd. Don't threaten them. It's the wrong group to threaten. But at the same time, it's a pretty fair crowd. There's nobody that's ever been booed or hissed at or been drug out and hung after their guest speaking thing. There's quite a bit of respect for it, no. And you should always be respectful to the audience, because the audience are the people there that can kind of like agree with you or disagree with you, but can actually open that all up better for you. So, okay. Got to Bob. Thanks for your input. That's ridiculous. We did that. Okay. Oh, say Wayne, we did that. I would love to talk to Ron about the Lost Adams diggings. Shoes, too. Shoes has good stories, too. They're in two different places. It's so funny, isn't it? One guy's, it's the Bulldog. One guy's, it's the Silver Chief. They're partners on things, and they're very, very close friends. And then they completely agree on different things, completely different places. So, I don't know how much time Ron will spend, but I'm sure Bob will be out and spend quite a bit of time. And Bob always likes to hang at the campfires afterwards. Jax, you swung the door so violently, you didn't knock it over, but you rocked Alan Tree's guitar. Yeah, Alan Tree's 12 strings sitting right over there. Yes, refurbished, because it needed refurbished. It was not in very good shape. And it's not haunted. It does not play. It only played there because the door hit it. There you go. I would love to talk that up. Once the lizard people land their UFO outside, you'll change your tune. Yeah, I'm not holding my breath for that. Never have been, never will. The lizard people. Well, they're supposedly underground, living underground underneath us even now. They're supposedly there, and I don't know how in almost 50 years I've just never seen a lizard person in the mountains. And then people are just like, oh yeah, there's this girl, Angie, no last name. Nobody knows where she's at. She's never done any interview except she talked to her sister, who then they talked to Sherry Hinkle, who also believes there's a big alien base in New Mexico, and she's had her own encounters. But other than them, nobody else is witness to this and has any personal, straightforward knowledge of it. I find that always weird, is they come up with that story and then it kind of runs its piece. I mean, UFOs of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they just keep changing and morphing. I mean, their technology is getting better as our technology gets better. Imagine that. Remember back when they were like little green men, and now they're grays, big eyes, and lizard people. Do you and Trevor still plant Easter eggs in your videos? Or did you stop around episode 232 when you mentioned 232? I'd have to look at what 232 was. No, I think we still do stuff occasionally. He doesn't always know. I do things and he's not aware of it. I just let him know afterwards. But the problem comes is you can't really do too much because you get frustrated that nobody's catching things. And, like I always say privately, not in front of you guys. I would never want to say it to your faces. What kind of treasure hunters are these guys that they don't even pick up the obvious stuff? Me and Bob Ward sitting there, what the hell? So it's that kind of funny thing that you're like, is there not, I don't know how big of a following you need for people to like suddenly say, hey, there's something here. And it wasn't done as marketing or anything like that. It was done just to see. And that was where Frank and I came up with the thing. Let's do Easter eggs and hide shit and then do this thing. And I said, why are we going to hide stuff? They can't even figure out what I thought was the easy stuff. And folks, I am knowledgeable. I am somewhat intelligent. I'm aware, but I'm not that freaking smart that I should be fooling that many people. I am not. You know, there's stories I could tell where you'd be like, huh? Yeah, I'm lucky sometimes I can figure out how to hang a roll of toilet paper. So give me a break. So we do things, but it's always for fun. I got out of the whole idea of doing something, and I think we were doing it during the Forrest Fenn thing and all, but yeah, we just kind of, Chasing Legends, the Doc Thorne story. Okay, thanks for reminding me when that one was. I'd have to look at them. Do you realize, after all these episodes, and we did lives, and we did the regular episodes, and we did lives during those, and before those, we used to do them once a week. And when you take the last, channel's been around for 10 years or so, if you take all that and put it together, it took me a while when I was speaking of Two Rabbits, One Hole. They did one of my episodes where they took parts of two different stories, put them together, and then added an element from something else in the middle, a part of it, and it was a story of the guy that I went down through Bull Pass to go by, and it's the recent one, of running out of water. He was drinking too much water and got sick, going to see Adolf Ruth's site where they found his body. And they coupled that with the other story where I'm not traveling north back to First Water, but I'm traveling south to Peralta after being in Needle Canyon with a different person who's talking to an imaginary person. And then they summed it up by saying we were going to look at Revis's grave. And I had a hard time figuring out what they were talking about, because I'm hearing my name, I'm hearing it's Chasing Legends. I love the fact that they were very supportive and acknowledged me and everything, and I was so confused. What the hell are they talking about? I think I just told that story, but that's not that story at all. What's going on? Then I realized, they're elements of different stories. And I'm sure they watched them, and what happened was, when they memory without notes is they were inserting memory from different videos. But I still like those guys, so still go check them out on Spotify. Two Rabbits, One Hole. I just think the name's cool. If you have a cool name, you should have a cool podcast. And they have some pretty cool bumper music on it, the front and back. They had People Were Strange. I don't know who the artist was that did that, but they did People Are Strange by the Doors. Someone else singing it. But that was a pretty cool take. And they get some spooky music at the beginning sometimes and all. But they do some cool stuff. And I like what they do because it's a conversation of two guys talking about stuff they've researched and going back and forth. So very cool. They've never had a guest that I know of that I've run across, so them wanting to speak to me, or if I wanted to have something to do with the show, I don't know. But I'm open to it, guys. I keep meaning to email you, and I'm really suck at that. And I know they've been on here. They've been in the chat, and they were aware of it and stuff, and they've watched our videos, so I know they've been around. And I feel really bad because it's like, I hope they don't take any of it as criticism. They seem to have a sense of humor, so we'd probably be fine. Okay, we did the Easter egg thing, the Doc Thorne. Is there any good information in Frank Dobie's books? I think his books are just fun to read. I like good treasure hunt books. I like Penfield's books. I like Dobie's books. I like Mitchell's books. I just like reading them, because they were good writers, and then you can take it from there and look for the information of value and look things up. But, never shy away from a good storyteller or a good writer, because it's a worthwhile journey. When I first came to Arizona, I thought you were the authority. Now I find out that you're the youngster. Well, I'm not going to be the youngster long if everybody keeps passing away. I'm not the youngster. I'm the midster. I'm in a weird position of my generation. There's not a lot of people in my generation area, my age group, that kind of hung around and did I don't know why. Maybe we were a serious generation, got our shit together, and kind of walked away. But, yeah, most of the guys I went in the mountains with were either 10, 15 years older than me or 10, 15 years younger than me. So Jesse, Josh, Randy, all those guys were much younger than me. I was kind of like the anomaly during that period of time. Now, there's people now who have gotten into it in the last 5, 10 years, but I'm one of the few people that was steady through it. And there was a few more people my age group at the rendezvous early on, and those people have disappeared. But I think that's kind of thing I sometimes realize there's a 10, 15 year lifespan of sometimes being into something, and people move on to something else. And I just haven't found, well, I just keep taking on more things that I'm into. But I'm not the youngster. I'm definitely not the youngster. And God, it's like I'm the youngster, but I got over 50 years in the mountains. Nope, Wayne has earned his keeping. Comes from a native of Arizona. There you go. Yeah, and I'm not, that some of the best historians and people that go and search Arizona and pull stuff up are not natives. Natives generally tend to just like roll with it. I live in a household of natives, though. Hey, Wayne, have you talked to the other guys? I hope I talked to Frank this week. I got to talk to Woody next week, but no, I haven't talked to Dalil or Magnuson in a while. I did talk to Shoes in the last week. I got to call Brian Lichtman back because Brian wanted me to call him. He left me a voicemail and I forgot today. I talked to Glenn Evans, who was our director of photography, one of the cameramen at Legends. I talked to him for an hour or so today. Glenn's a great guy. So I talked to Glenn today. And, hey, Dallas, hola. So it was a kind of a quiet week, though. Yeah, but I did talk to Frank for a bit. We talked. It was because of Bob Corbin and something else we talked about. But this was a quieter week. Usually every week it's, Greg, Frank, Woody. There's a bunch of different people through the week. Shoes. And I kind of talk, and there's a few people layered in there. And this week was a little quieter. A lot of work, a lot of podcast time. You're late. Well, you get punished. There's a fine for that. But Frank, Woody, and all them are doing fine and doing well. Supposedly there was some human-like big footprints several miles in the woods at a tree stand. Well, you can say that. I have big feet, and there's people who have bigger feet than me. I don't know. I had that discussion with, who was that? It was McChesney the other day, who said, you found that really huge footprint down by Bird's Ranch, because he's a Bigfoot guy. And then I pointed out, and then he said, where are you going to find out a bear footprint like that? And I said, Frank and I did in one of the videos. We were in Hewitt Canyon, up in the brush, in really rough country. And there was all kinds of stickers and crap on the ground, and started finding bear footprints that was either a child, younger person, or a woman, but they were smaller sized feet, and they were bare feet going down this one spot where you could see it. So, and I'm pretty sure we filmed that. So I know we talked about it. I don't know if it was, you could see it on camera. I would think Trevor would have caught it. But yeah, so I told him, no, I've seen that, and it doesn't make sense there either. But it doesn't mean there's a Bigfoot just because people are dumb enough to run around their bare feet. It's kind of funny. Some of the Dutch hunters are from Illinois. Most are. Hank DeAndrea, Ernie Saviano, and Basil Zaccardia came out with that map to team up with Barry Storm. They're all from Illinois. Paul Shimmick, who joins us here occasionally, he was from Illinois. He's a Cub fan. He goes by Cub fan on the forums. Let's see. There's myself. Alan Tree was from Illinois. Because it does get silly. Bob Shoes is originally from Illinois. It is silly how many people come from Illinois, but how many Dutch hunters actually go back to Illinois. And you're just like, that's kind of odd. I don't know what it is. There's something about people from Illinois becoming Dutch hunters, and definitely people from Chicago or the metropolitan Chicago area. So, even though Shoes and Tree and them were Southsiders. So, I don't know if they, but there you are too, they're Illinois guy. I mean, it's just kind of a thing, Yeah, go Cubs go. Let's try to win when the Brewers lose. Let's quit this thing of like, the Brewers won, well, we'll win. Brewers lost, well, we might as well lose too. I got a friend request from Frank. Should I do it? I don't know if that's Frank, because Frank does not do social media. I'd be very careful on that and look and see who his friends are. Look at that person, because if they're not friends with Delil Magnus and Woody, myself, and several of the people that you would definitely know, I don't know if that's real, because Frank does not do Messenger, and he rarely does Facebook. In fact, during his birthday, I had to tell him to get on Facebook to thank people, because he does not do social media. He does not care for that stuff. He will do TreasureNet occasionally and look in there, but he's not an online guy. There we go. Susan's from Illinois and fascinated with the soup. See, it's just a weird thing. It's how many people, and I know I'm missing a bunch of people, but one day I was sitting there and I realized, Tree's from Illinois and Shoes is, and I am. Shimmick is, and this, and then I was talking, there was those three guys from Chicago and this guy. And then every time I would be doing research, I'm like, oh, he's from Illinois. Oh, he's from Illinois. So it's just kind of a little crazy. Tom Collenborn was from Utah. He wasn't even a native Arizonan. Greg, was there ever a time when you got nerved out in the mountains? Nerved out like chicken shit and decided to take off? Stormed out. I don't know if you, on the main mountain, that storm that hit and we scrambled because of the lightning and shit, that was like, it was destroying everything. That could be nerved out, but that would be one of the few times. Most of the time through storms, anything, you just hang in there. There's not that made me, never unnerved me too much. There would be that moment you'd be like, what's going on? But that's that, but nothing that would make me turn and take off. And Randy Wright would be a good one on that. Trevor is just, they've just seen, I just kind of like stand my ground. There was, the other day we were walking and this dog came running out and came right at us, and everybody kind of did the scoot. And I just stopped and held my ground. The dog got up, was barking and snarling at me, and I stared him down, and then he went back. And I told Trevor, I said, never turn your back on something, you know. That's how people get bit. They get hurt. Things happen. You can't see. You can't defend yourself. There's nothing you can do. So I told him, you need to, you don't have to lash out or try to punch the dog. Even though I had a guy work for me once. It was funny. He thought he was going to get fired. He said, I didn't mean to, but I punched the customer's dog. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, the dog came out and snarled and it snapped at me, and I thought it might bite me, so I just punched it in the nose, and it got a bloody nose and ran off. I'm like, no, that's fine. It's better than spraying them with the stuff, But, all right. I moved to Kansas City. WGN was my favorite. And watching the Cubs, Andre the Hawk Dawson, and Rhino. Yep. Yeah, that was an era. That was an era. I remember listening to on the radio, my dad, and then when we first got WGN, I'm trying to think who would have been playing when we first got cable. I think Rick Ruschel was gone, because I remember the Manny Trio and those days Cubs. I'm not back. My dad was bringing stuff home from Cubs games when I was wee little, when Ernie Banks and Santos and Billy Williams and all them played. But I remember my favorite player as a kid in the mid-'70s was Rick Ruschel, the pitcher. I really liked Ruschel. Big fat guy. Really could pitch, though. Probably would have done really well anywhere, except he was with the Cubs at the time in the 70s. And he still did pretty good. I'm coming back next month. There you are. See? So, yeah, everybody should come back to Arizona when it's winter and it's cooler, because it's so much nicer than during the summer. Dang. What time is it? Okay, it's 39. I thought I saw 59 up on the computer. It's very, very, very small. I thought, how the hell did I just talk for 59 minutes? Anyhow, the rendezvous. Let's talk a little about the rendezvous, because we got the rendezvous coming up. And I know people have questions and things, but we have kind of some of the stuff set out for the rendezvous. So the hike, which is always, the hike is set. It's the time we leave in the morning, and that might be discussed Friday night. But the hike, tentatively, we have about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, because it'll take us about an hour to get out there, hour to get back, and I want to kind of get back. That will be out up Cardiac Hill, If you get gassed going up the hill or there's a problem, you can turn around and go back downhill, which will be quite easy. Get back to the parking lot and camp because you can see camp from there. That'll be kind of the little judge, the test to see if people go in. We'll be going into Barks Canyon. There's some inscriptions there we'll be going to look at. I won't say who will be there, but there's several people, very knowledgeable people that will be along for the trip, and we should have a really good time. After that, around 11, we're hoping, 10:30, 11, will be Woody Wampler, who will do a prospecting class. He'll get set up. He'll teach you how to prospect and talk about prospecting and panning and all that stuff. We'll have a trough set up in the big Ramada so people can afterwards do that. We'll have a couple pans set aside so you can pan some dirt and stuff. But the whole idea would be is Woody to kind of give you on some hands-on, and he will be there for an hour or so. After that, from 12 to 1, we have the Tonto National Service. Forest Service. Last year we had 3 ladies that were out and very nice. I don't know if it's the same program, but they will come out to talk again. Last time they kind of came out a bit late and couldn't stay for the later program. They will be out to talk about geology and archaeology and the Forest Service, and they can answer a number of different questions about different things. We are obviously there under permission. I think we just sent in our permit because there has to be a permit for a big event. It has to be turned in with the Forest Service. So we just turned in our permit, even though it's leased land and the Dons have it. We have to tell them we're having the event and X amount of people will be there. It's not like me and Frank and some guys are going out there to hang out. It's a large scale event, so they need to know that we'll be there for usage. Let's see. Lunch will probably be about 1 to 2. And then we have, I know there's a couple other people going to be talking. John Wayne Galloway will be after lunch and so forth. There's a couple people that'll have some short talks after that. And then Jason Fritz is the main speaker. There's some other people going to be speaking and some presentations, some stuff during the evening, which dinner should prep about 4:30. And we will probably be serving up about 4:30 to 5, and then around 6 p.m. we'll get kicked off. Sunsets at 5:26, so around 6 p.m. we should be kicking off in the amphitheater. So there you go. What was that rifle you were carrying in the TV show? That was a 30-30 Winchester. I still carry that rifle occasionally. It's very light to carry, definitely in that sling. It's much easier than carrying many of the other rifles that I've carried over time. 30-30 is good for just about anything. Big, medium, and small game. It can just about crack anything. It's just a good gun. Yeah, they're pretty solid rifles. So, I did think at a portion of time as things were really going and they were doing conventions and stuff, and people wanted my hat, which I don't know why, with the guano and stuff. That guano hat's retired, and I think it's somewhere in the garage buried. But anyways, I had it dry cleaned and it still had a little smell to it. But the other thing was they talked about raffling off my rifle, which, no, you're not taking my rifle and raffling my rifle. Love a 30-30. Yeah, I really like 30-30s. Are really solid guns. They're good brush guns, good for the desert and stuff. They got a bit of kick to them. They're not a comfortable. They're good. They're not a long gun like most rifles and stuff. They're a short gun, but they are good, solid guns. Probably my favorite. Well, I would say, your favorite's got to be a 22, good 22, because they're so accurate and they're so much fun. I mean, was it $10, $15? You buy a box of 100, 200 rounds, and you can just plink cans all day. It's a lot of fun. Was the medicine wheel in the TV show made for TV? Has that been there a while? Well, it's no longer there. Someone destroyed it, dismantled it, and then someone rebuilt it, and then someone tore it apart, and then someone rebuilt it, and then it got tore apart. It's not the only medicine wheel out there. There's another one somewhere in the area. Anybody that knows the mountains knows where it's at. Don't want to talk about that one is because I do not want anyone messing with the other one that's been there for a long, long time. The problem is, when the rocks are sitting on rock tops, the other one's actually on the surface of a kind of a mesa area. So it shows it's been there longer. The problem, anything on a rock surface, it's hard to tell how long it's been there, because if the rock's got any pitch to it, of course, every time it rains, it washes everything down and stuff. So there you go on that. So it's always hard to tell. It's funny, when we did the TV show and we talked about a few things on camera. We were there with I think, I can't remember who it was. Jack Sanfelice was there, and Clay Worst was there. I think it was George Johnson, wasn't it? And me and Frank, maybe Magnus. And anyways, we're all sitting around talking, and they were talking about the medicine wheel and a couple things. And one of the things I said is, they did not include in the show, is anything on an inclined rock surface is never going to show a buildup of dirt and stuff. Really, it's on a raised platform. So I said, actually identifying it by characteristics that you would on something that's on the ground would be nearly impossible. It would always have a clean surface around it. Yeah, Marlin makes good 30-30s too. So, but I just wanted the Winchester. I'm a big fan of the Jimmy Stewart movie. What is that? Winchester 73, right? So, always liked that movie. Don't know why. I'm sure it was one of those days I sat with my dad and watched that movie, and it just stuck with me. I like the empty cartridges coming out the side, not the hop. Yeah. But, so there's that. But that's the rendezvous. Kind of what we got scheduled up. Friday we'll have camp set. We'll have, if people want to have a fire up in the big Ramada, they're more than welcome to gather around there. I'm sure we'll probably have the one down by my area, unless it's extremely windy or something. Or I don't think there's going to be a huge fire restriction. So if there is a fire restriction, we'll have to be in the big Ramada. Thanks to Larry, who picked up some lights. We'll have some solar lights out in the evenings to kind of light things up a little, so you'll know we're there and kind of be able to direct yourself in, regardless of all that stuff. So the camp should be set up. Everything's fine. The restrooms were clean. Everything was good. I will mention this. The Don's camp was broken into. The bunker. There's nothing in the bunker that anybody would want. It's stuff we use for Discovery Camp for the kids and stuff. There's nothing you're going to be able to want to haul out of there. We don't keep anything of really major value or anything in there anymore. But someone shot up one of the walls. They got through one wall shooting it up, and then they tried to get through it, and then they went through and busted bead welds and weld beads and stuff. We're actually doing a better job to keep it secure, but it's problematic of why people would go out there and be destructive of that. It's for the rendezvous, it's for Discovery Camp for kids. It's a nice place. We don't care if people go out there. If someone goes out there and has a fire once in a while, if they keep things picked up and they're clean and neat. But it's just ridiculous how people just try to ruin it for everybody else. Do you really want us to kind of lock it down more in the Forestry Service and there be problems, and on top of it all, that we have to put some sort of cameras in there to monitor who's there and send the sheriff's department out? I don't think anybody wants that. Well, I don't want it. I want people to walk through and get interested and say, hey, what's this site? Oh, it's the Don's Base Camp. They have the rendezvous there. I think it's good. People are just idiots doing stuff like that. And unfortunately, they get out there and they spend hours and hours just doing that. I did this day in the Superstitions once. This is in the early 2000s. Someone broke into the bunkers and went through the camp and caused $10,000 worth of damage. So it can suck because they're just sucky people out there. Trevor's home. Winchester 73 was my first movie my dad took me to watch. Well, I think we watched it on the couch. I don't know why anybody would destroy things like that, take a photo and let it be. Well, why not just enjoy and realize, oh, here's a place, and it's got shade and a place you could sit. You could have a little fire here one evening, and it's just, why do people got to go in there and then think there's something in this bunker? It's just about the larger stuff that we're trying to store, like the big troughs for gold panning, because we have 5 really large troughs that we use, 5 or 6. Anyways, and we have benches the kids can sit on and stuff like that. It's not stuff you want to steal. It's just so we don't have to haul everything in and out of there. It's meant to store what we use for Discovery Camp and stuff. The rendezvous does not use anything from the bunker. So it's ridiculous. There's some old pots and pans from back in the old days of Trek that we cooked in. Nobody ever takes those. They take a cooler. They grab a cooler out of there, and then they steal the cooler every year when they break in. It's stupid. So, need to put a tracker on the coolers. Um, it will eventually destroy everything. That's why I lived in the mountains. Yeah, but for the past 10 years, but they're going in the mountains and destroying stuff. So there you go. You can't even get around with it from there. Let's see. I love your channel. Thank you. I can see the superstitions from my house. Been here since 1982, it looks like. Okay, cool. Yeah, I couldn't live with the superstitions out my back window or something. That would drive me crazy, because I'd be trying to think of a reason every day to go out and cause myself grief. Maybe that day will come. I hope at that point, I think if the day comes that I'm that close, I just have to have a horse, because I don't want to walk that much anymore at that point. Just be Tom and just ride around out there. Maybe I'll be that guy. Oh, by the way, the Two Rabbits, One Hole did a really nice job on the White Stallion story by Tom Collenborn. Really, really nice story version on that, which I really enjoyed because it involved, they talked about Tom and him in the story, and the story came from Dan Hopper, and hearing Dan's name made me smile too. So it made me very happy to hear my old friends' names and their stories being shared. Because that's, I miss those guys. Anybody that knew those guys should miss those guys. They were such good guys. I miss Tom, but I miss Dan. Dan was just a good guy. I always liked that. Yeah, his boys, Bob and Jerry, would be up there, and Jeremiah, and they would be drinking, and he'd have enough of them drinking up at the trailer during the rendezvous or whenever we're all out there camping. And he'd come down the hill just shaking his head and sit down. Damn it, Wayne, can't get no peace of mind. And he'd sit there and all. But I always liked Dan. Dan was such a good guy. I also ran into him an awful lot at Greg Davis's house doing research and stuff. But Dan had been introduced into the mountains by his own father back in probably the 40s, the 50s. So Dan had a very long history out there, and I miss him a lot. That being said and done, as we continue on our journey, Trevor never even came in and said hello to all of you. We're at 4:53. He just kind of comes in at the end, sneaks through, disappears. I see Tyler, but I don't see... Oh, I see Trevor. The Bearded Wonder is in there, and he's sitting down. He's not going to even approach us. Oh, well. What's funny is that all this YouTube stuff and all the streaming we do and anything we do that makes any money, all the money goes to his bank account. Me and Frank and I agreed to that, because the technical and the editing, everything he sets up for us and stuff, let him just have it. We don't need it. We don't, we don't care. So Trevor is actually the one that actually makes money on all this stuff. So yes, I'm just the talent. Poor talent that's just not paid. I remember the picture of Tom on his horse with the dog. The horse with Crow, and the dog's name was Duke. Yeah, Tom rode Crow for many, many years and had Duke, which Greg Davis doesn't like dogs, but Greg would always say Duke wasn't very nice. He even hated Tom. Relic Hunter, I agree. Oh, okay, what did Relic Hunter say? I don't even know if someone said something. I don't know. Thought that was Relic Hunter was a person. Trying to go back through all this stuff, it's like, okay. Do you prefer the color? I like the black and white version, the version you saw with your dad when you were younger. That's always the best one. Everyone's welcome at the Superstition Mountains. We may edit you. We may censor you for saying things that are ridiculous. But we still welcome you. We don't have a problem with you being there. So if you want to do that, if you want to say things like that around the campfire, I'd be very careful the rest of the night for myself. But yeah, on the public forum, because there are, and believe it or not, there are younger people, some younger people with big eyes and have ears that get on their little phones or their little pads, and they enjoy this stuff. And I know I don't always catch myself on my language, but they are fans too. There was a lot of kids that were big fans of Legend of the Superstition Mountains, and that's why with the early Legend stuff, we were very careful, Frank and myself, of making sure there was no foul language and stuff, because there were a lot of young kids between the age of 6 and 10 and 11 that really loved the show. And that's always a cool thing, because that young generation who thinks, and they're really so like an awestruck to meet you and stuff. So always remember that when we're posting and doing stuff. I always try to remember, but my language, I just have a history of just having a potty mouth. Do you ever have times when people get up on the microphone with their guitars and play some songs? We've had people around the campfire do it. I've done it. Dave did it. Dave and I did it. Brad Cooper did it. Wendell, friend of Rogers, did it. There was a guy who brought a guitar one time, had it out there in the afternoon. I sat down and played his guitar for a little bit. There was one year, Friday night, that's all we did. Me and Dave Ettinger just sat and just went back and forth and just played. I let Dave sing all night. But we did sing-alongs, and we played most of the night in the Big Ramada, which was kind of fine. And then we played some Saturday. We played, I know we played 2 songs. I can't remember the first one. The second one, he did Sweet Caroline, which I was like, okay, that's not, because I was asking him, I said, I know the chord structure. Do you know the words for Ghost Hunters, Riders in the Sky? Ghost Hunters, Riders in the Sky. And he was like, no. And I was like, damn, because that would have been a good one. So people have brought their guitars and played. I bring my guitar some years. Sometimes I play. It was always nicer back in the early days when Joe Roboto was the main host and he had the host camp, and I could sit up in my camp and I would sit in my camp, and there'd be a few of us. We'd go down to Joe's and then we'd go back up, and then I would sit and play guitar and stuff and just kind of wind down and stuff. But yeah, we've had that. It does happen. The thing is, you need to have a nice shit guitar because you're in the desert, you're there, and who knows what could happen, and you want to be protective of a really nice guitar in that situation. The weather is getting to a point where it's nice to be up there. Well, not quite yet for a campfire, but it is getting closer. Maybe you need to let everyone know it's not like Burning. Well, why would anybody think it's like Burning Man? It's where we get together, we have guest speakers, we talk about the Lost Dutchman. I don't think anyone's had that confusion. There are some of those, we will call them the mystical people, but there are some people, they still know the Dutchman, and but different people. I don't think we've ever had a problem with the Burning Man type crowd, those people. And in fact, other than Brad Cooper, I'm trying to think if there was ever many pot smokers up there, even, because I know Cooper and his buddies did. It wafted down the hill, and we joked about it. Most of the time, there's just some drinking and just good times, and everybody just sits back. But no, there he is, the lost and wandering Trevor, who reaps all the benefits and monies from these channels, but doesn't appear most of the time. Don't look so grim and wide.
You should refer to me as wide.
Oh, well, I made you look down. Someone said that people might confuse us with Burning Man. Tried my best to make it. It's a long shot. Well, always try your best. That didn't make you smile? Burning Man? The Rendezvous?
I'm really tired.
Okay.
I only got 4 hours.
Country Carpenter said, Trevor, and waved. And Trevor just kind of he had a long night last night. He had a very long night. Tonight's pizza, by the way. Peter Piper.
I was actually thinking, about taking a nap.
I made the suggestion once I'm done, and after I do the grocery run, that I run down and pick up pizzas tonight. No cooking. Me and T will smoke. Yeah, I don't think you can smoke because of your job, can you?
No.
No, so.
Well, I don't drive a white bus, but I don't have any. It's not my thing.
Okay.
So
It's not his thing.
it's
There
not
you
my
go.
thing.
Glenn says, hey, Trevor.
Right.
And Larry says, howdy, Trev.
You know what? It is weird. I do feel like this camera makes me look more round. It makes me. It does. It doesn't it?
Okay.
I don't think I'm actually this fat. I think we need to look at a different camera.
Different camera. The camera's. Tyler, come in here. We need you to stand where Trevor's standing to see if you look fat.
He looks like a twig.
Tyler, come in and stand so we see if you
here.
look fat. Because Trevor's saying he looks fat on camera. Like it's a fisheye lens or something.
Well, it is kind of wide. I mean, the closer I get, the worse it gets.
Tyler, just walk on camera. We're partially there. People saw you. You can just come on. Okay? Quit walking like you're a ballerina showing
Look
up.
at him. He looks.
He makes you look wider. Yeah,
does.
so it's not the camera.
Why do I look wider? Now I've killed you.
Yeah, how come Tyler looks skinnier and you look wider?
I don't know.
How does that work? Oh well.
That's messed up.
It's messed up. Well, I guess we won't see him back on camera for a while. All three of you look great. There you go. See, someone made a compliment after they left. I don't know why Tyler was tippy-toeing. It's weird. Yeah, Tyler's the one. I'll have to break out a couple photos of me at that age. I don't think there's anybody out here who knew me in my early 20s, but that's like almost a dead ringer for me. So, yes, and then this happened. God, it's called having children and aging. But they're done and they're gone. I guess they're over it so far. So we're gonna get out of here. I got groceries to pick up. I got to pick up pizzas. I got all kinds of things I got to do. But the rendezvous, November 14th, 15th, and 16th, getting all that planned out and everything done for that. We will be trying to talk, and definitely at the rendezvous is a time when we can have that discussion when a number of people are there. That would be involved in that is like a hike for the fall, maybe even when in the winter I want to do a couple things like that. Lacey, they're my children. I can call them skinny and fat. I can call them stupid if I want. I have permission from myself to do so, and they know better. Because I have a hard time. I can say Trevor's dumb as a rock, but the problem is he's working on a doctorate. He finished his bachelor's in 2.5 years, his master's in 1.5 years, and he's working on his doctorate that he'll have done in the next year or so. I don't think he's that dumb. See y'all the next time. So, but yeah, everybody have a good time. Maybe we'll get Tyler to speak on camera sometime, or else I'll just sit here and work his head like a puppet. He's giving me a look now. But thank you everybody for joining us, having a good time on a Friday. It does kick into my weekend. It kind of lets me know the weekend's here after I'm done, and I go through and make sure this uploads and get all that finished. But it is kind of cool. Kind of the welcome to the weekend and stuff. Thank you for everybody for joining us. I'm going to get out of here, go pick up some groceries and pick up some food so I can eat some dinner, chill out and relax. Join us again Monday for Chasing Legends. Y'all, let's have a great weekend. Yes, we will have a good weekend at the rendezvous. Lacey will be working the bar. We'll give her a little card table she can put in front of her, and she can bartend from behind the card table. No, you don't have to, Lacey. And Lacey, in fact, when you come to Arizona, make sure everybody else serves you drinks. Don't get yourself up even to grab a drink. Make sure everybody treats you right. You're not supposed to be working at that point. We will have to keep that intact and make sure we remember that. Okay, thank you everybody. I'm getting out of here. Still want to see the Tyler show. Yeah, the silent movie film. Anyways, thank you everybody for joining us on live. We will see you again next week. Have a great week.